What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Chuck Creekmer, a.k.a. Jigsaw, and you are in for a treat today. We are here with one of the hottest, dopest, maybe dopest, then hottest young rappers out today, but specifically New York City, Marlon Craft. What's going on?
What's up, man? Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yo, glad to have you, man. I've been watching you evolve for quite some time, and before I even reached out, which was really last year, I had really been bumping your music for a while. So it's good to have you.
That's awesome, man. That's great to hear, bro. For real. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So first things first, let's just go straight to the sort of the promo, the new album, how we intended. Talk about the new album and the circumstances around you putting it out, and it's a weird time right now.
Yeah. I mean, so the album's out, dropped February 10th. It's how we intended, man. It's my best work. It was crazy because it was originally supposed to be an EP that I dropped, sort of that I was gonna drop right before the pandemic. We actually had just announced the release show for what was gonna be this EP, the day before everything shut down. And yeah, man, it just kept. I decided to make it a full album, much in the spirit of the title, with this idea of intent, this idea of that the path never looks how you intend it to be, but as long as you move with focused intention, you're always going to end up where you need to be. And so that just kept on taking new meaning as the year went on, and I just kept building out the project. And then in the end, the project kind of told the story of this crazy year that was 2020, for myself in a way that I felt is also kind of universal. So I'm really proud of it, and the response has been really dope.
Yeah, no, it's really an amazing work. It shows a lot of maturity. I think that's the first thing that really grabbed me, was how mature the album felt. What do you attribute that maturity to, in this day and age of pretty immature hip hop, to be, real?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I think it's just life. I've always felt like my artistry is an extension of my personhood. And, I've always been kind of like an old soul. I hung out with the older cats, even on my block, I was in between generations. So
Right.
I was a little bit older. There was a bunch of kids that was younger than me and a bunch of kids that were older than me. So I always chilled with the older kids. And yeah, and I've always just been kind of, even with the anxiety and the depression that I've dealt with, I think a lot of times comes from being a kid that has a deeper understanding of things intellectually before they're emotionally ready to deal with that type of thing. So it's so I've always just felt old, I felt old and tired. So to me, it's kind of just an extension, naturally of who I am. But then also, of course, the things that I've had the privileges to be exposed to, you know what I'm saying? I speak on what I know, what I've seen, and how I've interpreted it. So
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, in my head, I'm I think I could be friends with this guy. As I'm listening, I'm I really relate to what he's saying, and the vibes are even something that I just naturally gravitated to. So yeah, I've dealt with some of those same things, depression and anxiety. It's crazy. And then to have a pandemic on top of that is even crazier, So I've done a lot of self-work, self-care, even just to make sure, that I'm ahead of the game before something, catches me off guard. So what would you say, in terms of influences? Now, I think I know the answer to this, but tell me what your creative influences are.
in terms of people, that influence me, or just generally?
Both.
Yeah. I mean, my father's a jazz musician, so I grew up with a lot of jazz playing in the house. That was early on.
Yeah.
But then it was really just from being a New York kid, growing up on the block, everyone was handing me stuff, and I just wanted to be cool like the kids I looked up to. We were hanging out outside, and dudes was giving me the Walkman to listen to, and it was Stillmatic, and then it was Nellyville and Eminem show era, that year or whatever. and it was and I just got lost in it. And so all that stuff, you know, and then I spent a lot of time in Harlem as a kid because I played for Riverside Church and play AAU ball in Harlem, Bronx. So I was like Dipset was like a crazy influence, and I was really into like Cassidy, and like I was on the like Punchline like battle rap. We was watching like Smack DVD, like you know what I'm saying, like shit like that. So like, you know, that's why I think some of my stuff is like I speak about issues that are topical or like social justice stuff or whatever it may be, or like even if it's the mental health shit. But sometimes my delivery is kind of like a gangster rapper because like that's what I grew up on. So it's kind of this weird blend. And then the musicality, I think, you know, like from my pops and the jazz influence, of course, you can hear in my music. But there's just countless influence. I'm influenced by everything, like even shit that I don't like. Like I'll listen to shit that and try to like say like, oh, everybody likes this record and I think it's trash, but like let me listen to it and try to hear like what it is that everyone's gravitating towards, or find the things that I do like about it to put into what I'm doing and try that out with some of what I'm doing. And then, you know, in life, like creatively, it's really just music has always been that outlet for me. Like writing has been that outlet for me. So I just kind of try to follow like, you know, the authenticness of my own expression and what I'm feeling inside and what I need to get out and everything. And so my whole life influences that, you know.
Gotcha. Is your dad playing on your albums, the jazz parts?
Nah, I had him play actually on, like, I dropped this EP called Work From Home that was kind of like we did the whole thing in the quarantine at the crib, and he played a little bit of vibraphone on one of the joints. But he doesn't really be playing on my stuff that much, but he's like my ears for all the mixes. Like we get together and like and before pandemic was going on, he would come to the studio with me sometimes and vibe. But it, like I always like will play him all the mixes or send him, and he's like my second pair of ears. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the State of the Union video, it grabbed me. Like it really was like almost like a vice grip, and it was like a punch in the gut reminder, like of where we were, where we are, and I want to know what made you tackle that at that time, and how long had you planned it? Because the timing was perfect. Like it, I don't even know. Like it was just like A1 timing, even though creatively it stands on its own.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, so what's crazy about that shit is like I had planned it for a minute, like maybe a couple months. I wrote it from an organic place of just like, yo, I'm tired. Like this was a lot of it came from this one conversation I'd had with some friends in particular. But then also just like it was accumulating within me. And I was like, all right, I'm going to write one of these long ass shits where I just got to get all this shit off. And I wrote it. And then I was like, all right, I was looking at the calendar and trying to be, you know, calculated. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this around the inauguration because, you know, that's when everybody, either way, like at that point, I didn't really know who was going to win. But I was kind of like, either way, this is what people need to, this is when I want to make this statement. And I think it looked like Biden was going to win, but it was like, you know, I want to remind people on day one that like, we didn't really win shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is everything that's still going on regardless. So, so that was the plan. And then when the thing happened at the Capitol, it was just like, I had turned it in that morning. Like I had turned it into DSPs that morning. So it really had nothing to do with that. And, yeah, so it was kind of this crazy thing, but like I've said, the writing was kind of on the wall for that stuff. So I knew that maybe that would be the time when people needed to hear it, but it just came together crazy. And I'd been planning on rolling it out for like, you know, a couple months.
Yeah. And you showed up on Ari Melber's show on MSNBC. That's my guy. You know, I've been on his show a lot. And once he got onto it, I was like, all right, so I'm gonna sit this out. I'm gonna let this ride a little bit before I hit you back up for the interview, because I didn't want to look like I was following Ari, even though I respect him greatly. What was it like getting that national spotlight, and what was the response? Because that audience is very different.
So that it was really crazy because first of all, it was like I just DM'd the video to Ari because, you know, he started following me We had never even really spoken like that, really, but like he just followed me and I was following him, and we would like each other's stuff. And I was like, you know, this was like something that I was like, I'm sending this to everybody because, you know, I want, this is it could be a moment and this is powerful. And also it's kind of feels like that moment where you're like, you know how it is in this thing. Like you have a lot of people that like support you, like kind of in theory, but it's like with me, I felt like this was an important piece of work where it's like, all right, it's time like now for all the influencer folks. Like if you guys really support what I'm doing, like look at this video because we need to elevate this.
Mm-hmm.
And like I sent it to him and he was just like, you should come on the show. And it was crazy because he was like, it's going to take a couple of weeks. Bear with me on the date, like this, that, and the third. So we had a date that was way further off. And then like the week of when it came out, they hit me and were like, yo, we want to push you on tomorrow. And I was just like, yo, like, all right, let's do it. And even still, when he put me on with Michael Steele, I thought it was going to be more of like a back and forth, like, you know, like general thing. And then I get on the thing and it's like this whole thing was just featuring the video. So it was crazy. Shout out to him. It was special. And I mean, you know, in terms of the response, I mean, the response was amazing. I mean, like it was, I think, the most viewed video on the MSNBC YouTube for like the entire month. You know, a lot of people were hitting me. It's funny because it's an older crowd, so it was a lot of people like, yo, my mom just hit me, told like asking if I know you and like this, that, and the third and whatever. A lot of moms and grandmas calling their kids like, yo, check out Marlon Craft. But it was cool. Like, and the one thing I will say that was that I thought was like weird is like and difficult was after I went on the show and it went so well and it did so well, the content of it, I thought like, you know, we kind of got on like, all right, we need to send this around to everybody because I'm like, I want to go have this conversation in the culture. Like, I want to actually like, you know, I don't want to just go to where middle-aged white people are watching TV and like, let's talk about it and clap for me and whatever. It's like this is from our culture, from our thing that I'm lucky enough to be a guest in and a part of, but I have a home here and I'm making this for hip hop. And like, let's talk about it in those cultural spaces. And nobody really wanted to touch it. Like no other late shows wanted to touch it. None of like the super big, like media outlet, interview outlet things, you know, in the hip hop space really wanted to touch it. And so that was an interesting, like I can't say at this point it's surprising for me, but that was one thing that I wish had gone a little differently, you know.
Were you reaching out to rap outlets or just mainstream?
Yeah, both like rap outlets. And I mean, but that's why, like, to your credit, it's like being here, I really appreciate it. And you've always been like, you know what I'm saying? And like, so we've done some things, but it's just weird. It's like how, like, sometimes I think we shoot ourselves in the foot a bit because it's like, this was a national media moment. You know what I'm saying? And about issues that are really, really important. And we complain a lot about what doesn't get covered, like the people doing things and what does get covered, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying?
I totally agree. I don't, you know, these are weighty topics and I know that we talk about wanting change, but I think change starts with, you know, the conversation and then the action behind it. And, you know, rap's in a weird space, you know, it's interesting. And New York rap is even, you know, even more interesting, if you will. You know, where do you feel like you fit in that whole conversation of, you know, you have drill rap, for example, and I have no real issue with it, but it seems to just be in a whole different chamber. As an example, you know, of where New York is. But I got to admit, you remind me of the New York that I moved to when I left Delaware. You know, you remind me of that New York.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, it's strange. I mean, you know, New York's always running shit. You know, people always are like, oh, New York. People have said New York is dead or New York is this and that. Even when like New York wasn't making the music that maybe you or I or whoever wanted to hear, it was like always like, you know, Cardi B is like the biggest rapper of, she's from New York, you know, like all these people are from New York, you know what I'm saying? It's just, they don't have the New York rep energy that I think certain people would like to see. But I mean, I I just fit because this is me. I mean, and when I first came out in the first couple of years, I was repping New York super hard. And New York knows, like anybody that was around in those first couple of years, man, I was really trying to hold it down for New York specifically. Like in the music, trying to make like New York centered anthems. You know, I've had some crazy New York shows and some campaigns of just trying to like take New York back and this type of thing. So I feel like comfortable, you know, personally, and I feel sort of certified in the space. But it's funny because now I feel like I'm at a point where it's more just about New York's such a natural part of me as a person. And so just by being me and being myself, it's kind of like I'm being New York, you know, and so I don't really have to like try and focus too hard. But it's ill. I mean, there's a lot of dope dudes in New York. You know, I got the song Working Man on the record with, you know, Oswin Benjamin, Chris Rivers, Radimus. Those guys are doing their thing. You know, you got the drill movement going on, which there's some really dope guys there that are doing stuff that's musical and creative and dope. So there's a lot of things going on, and I just feel like, you know, I fit where I fit.
Yeah. The Tunnel's End is like a classic album. It really does, like you said, kind of capture everything about New York. In retrospect, do you think was that the turning point for you? Do you think, or was that just, you know, you taking off the training wheels? You know, have people discovered that album or rediscovered it? You know, because I was late to that.
Yeah, man. First, I mean, thank you. I mean, first of all, it's funny because my fans, like that are like my OG fans, you know, they're always wondering why, because I never refer to it as an album. Like when I dropped it, and I always refer to Funhouse as the debut. And the reason for that is twofold. It's like, one, I grew up in the era where mixtapes were like albums, you know, like Friday Night Lights is my favorite J. Cole project. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it was like, you know, I felt okay about it in that way. And then the other thing was just that, like, you know, I couldn't do everything I wanted to do yet with that, like, because I didn't have any budget, any like opportunity to actually get in the real studio. I recorded the whole thing on like a, you know, $200 Rode mic, you know, USB mic in my crib, and like, so, but I am really proud of it. And I think it stood the test of time because people really appreciate that. And like you said, it's a testament to New York. And I want to bring it back. I mean, we're going to do something this year. Like I'm going to get some vinyl cracking on that and like, you know, do really like, and that to me, yeah, it was a turning point in a lot of ways. Like we had a show at Baby's All Right that was crazy, sold out, and just like a while. I didn't realize how epic that show was till I did more shows, because I thought they was going to be like that all the time. And I was just like, yo, wow. I look back and I'm like, that was a legendary release show. Like that was crazy. And I had no idea. I thought this is life now. But yeah, man, we came out of nowhere with that one. But even then it was like the people that knew, but things weren't really changing in my career. And I think as an artist and creatively, I'd stepped into a new realm. I like to take the training wheels off metaphor, to be honest. Like that makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay. What's your technique of writing? I listen to you and I sort of, you know, we listen to MCs, so I'm listening to the way you write, and sometimes I can't really catch it. Like I can't catch how you write, because sometimes the words that rhyme, it's in odd places and things. You know, I'm like, how does he do that? Like I don't get that too much these days.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, I mean, I pride myself on that, and sometimes it's like a balance, you know, because you want to make people listen. You want to do stuff that's kind of left, you know, like I said, I'm influenced a lot by jazz and a lot of like the great jazz soloists and stuff. It's like it's kind of about doing the wrong thing right sometimes, you know what I mean? And I'm into that, because once it's awkward at first, but once you do catch it, it's like it means a lot more to your ear, you know what I mean? And so but a lot of times it's dictated by like what I'm trying to say. You know, like it'll just be like, what exactly am I trying to say and how do I want to fit it? And then I make it rhyme second. You know what I mean? So sometimes they'll show up in those weird places. But sometimes I'm just like, oh, I don't want to be static. You know, like it's like I don't want it to be clean. And finding that balance of like challenging yourself to keep things creative and fresh without like, no one wants to hear the shit that's like, okay, we get it. This is complicated, but I don't enjoy
Right.
listening to it. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to be everyone be one of those guys. So finding the balance between knowing, like, it's like if you're a black belt, in like a martial art, they could do all types of wild shit, but they're only going to do what's necessary for the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how I look at it. Is like, that's what I've honed, I think, the most over the last couple of years, is like having that innate sense of what's right for this moment on the song, what's right for what I'm trying to say here, like how much of the toolbox do I have to use,
Gotcha. Now, one thing I just realized today was that you actually went back from a major into independence. What made you do that? Most people are running towards the labels. Well, at least a lot of people are. Once they get there, they're pretty happy.
Yeah, well, so it was interesting. Like, I wouldn't really. So I was at this joint called Same Plate, which was a joint venture with Sony. And so it wasn't really like being at a major,
Okay.
and it was kind of supposed to be this hybrid situation where it was like an indie deal structure and, indie, whatever kind of space with major label resources. And frankly, like, I just don't think those things work. Like, well, it was more like we have the major label headaches of like the same paperwork, but like, the budget's not looking like that at like a major label, and et cetera, and the flexibility and stuff. So it was just the right situation. It was just the right moment for me. We were trying to figure out what the future was together, and we just couldn't get on the same page. And I think it was just the right time for me to step away. And I love it. I was repping my independence super hard before I did that. I looked at it as like a real partnership when I got into it. They always try to work with me in good faith and are good people over there. But as I learned more about the game and understood it more in practice, it felt less and less like a partnership to me. And now I've also just seen, for the way that I need to move, with the type of consistency and the type of flexibility, I just don't want to be really in a building like that if I don't have to be. So it's been great, and I've been able to actually build out my business this year in a way where it's sustainable.
Got it. Now talk about Hell's Kitchen a little bit. I've been to Hell's Kitchen, but I don't really know a lot about it. As a comic book head, I know Daredevil was from Hell's Kitchen, and that's kind of the extent of my understanding. So tell people, in the scheme, in this grand New York landscape, what is Hell's Kitchen?
Yo, we're the forgotten neighborhood, man. But that is so fitting, Hell's Kitchen. So like anyone that, been in New York, like between, like the 60s, 70s and like the 90s, early 2000s will tell you about Hell's Kitchen. Like the shit was like really bad. You know what I mean? It was like a lot of Irish mob, used to run it. And it's like, a lot of mainly like Puerto Ricans and Irish people. And it was a wild, place. I came in, I was born 93. So, I grew up during like the transitional period kind of it to, where it was still had the authentic New York grittiness to it, but, was starting to become a different place and a safer place, I guess, in some ways. And it's just authentic, neighborhood with a lot of authentic people. And now it's been like pretty much completely gentrified and completely run over by high rises and stuff like that. But all my homies, we still here, you know what I'm saying? Like people still there, and we have a lot of pride because we've always been like the forgotten little guy, because it's like a small neighborhood. Every rap song is like, they do like Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Harlem. Right. And then we'd be like, yo, like, you know what I'm saying? There's a whole Manhattan. So I've always repped it super hard because it really made me who I am.
Right, no doubt. You mentioned something earlier, and I wasn't going to mention this because I actually filmed a documentary, and they asked me this specific question. Are white people a guest in the house of hip hop? And I was like, ultimately, I said, yeah, because if you're looking at a house, who built the house, and and so on and so forth. So what's your take on it? You briefly touched on it, but I just wanted to get your view on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is yes. I think like the semantics of that question have at this point kind of like overtaken the question a lot of times, But I think the answer is yes, right? Like, this is Black culture. Hip hop is Black culture. It's a Black space. When you come into the culture as a white person, you got to move with a certain type of respect. And if you want to avoid what we call appropriation, you got to figure out ways that you contribute back to that culture without just taking from it. And I think, you have a guest, and if that guest comes respectful, that guest contributes, that guest is after a while, that guest in your house becomes like part of the family. And you look like that. You look at that guest a little bit differently than you do, other guests. And that's why I aspire to reach in this shit, is that by being around long enough and contributing and doing my thing, that I'll be looked at in that way. But that's the mentality that I move with, is that I'm a guest in the space. And I think where people get caught up is just the word guest. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, because there's a lot of people, like there are, white people that, like Dante Ross co-manages me, and he's like a classic.
Dante Ross.
Yeah.
I was literally talking to him last night. That is crazy.
Yeah,
about punk rock though. Punk rock.
Yeah, right. So it's like, right. It's like, so you understand, right? So like someone like that, right? Like, it's awkward to call someone like that a guest.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's where people get caught up, because there are certain people that are from the culture from the day that they're born in New York, and then and then they help to build it. But the reality is that we have to look at, in an institutional sense, absolutely, white people are guests, because the institution of hip hop is a Black institution. And it's kind of like, I always look at people that are really resistant to that phrase as like, what do you get out of being resistant to it? Like, if you're trying to move respectfully and contribute anyway, why do you care? Like, what's the point in arguing that? Like, it's a very sus situation. So that's what I think.
All right. I gotta hit up Dante now. I'm like, hey man, guess who I talked to today? That's hilarious. Yeah. He's a cool cat, man. He's I love to talk to people like him, because his perspective is just, it's deep, and it's worthy. So I think he's working on a book or something.
Yeah, it's coming out. Yeah, he's got a book coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I told him we'll get at him when the book drops.
Yeah, I'm excited to see like if there's any stories in it that I haven't heard yet, because I've stayed with him when I go to LA, and he's come on tour with me a bit, so I've heard a lot of stories. I bet there's probably just like a lot of stories I've heard, like minus all the cursing,
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Yo, the other thing I was like, I looked up, I looked up your wiki, and I was like, just trying to get some general information. And it said you graduated from American University. And I was like, the college graduate in hip hop. I was just bitching about that the other day. I was like, yo, these guys, they be going to college, they don't say nothing, they be lying or just omitting it. But I was really surprised to see that you created your own major, urban education and social justice, which kind of blew my mind. I was like, that's deep. Making your own major, that's next level. I don't know if there's anything to be said about that, if it contributes to the artistry. I mean, I think it does, just based on the way I hear you rhyme. But what was the impact of college on you, and were you the MC on campus, or what was that like?
Yeah, what's funny is 2 times I tried to open for Chance the Rapper that came, and they gave it to this other kid, and he let me do a song with him, but and then Run the Jewels came my senior year, and I tried, and it was like this student board, of course, that never, and they didn't let me, didn't let me do it. And I'd love to talk to them all now. I don't, but it's like that was where it started, where it's like, it's so funny because it's like always these like insecure white people that try to offer me resistance, and it's the same thing now with like Medialis, whatever it is. It's always so it's funny. It was like a preview of coming attractions,
right.
But Man, I learned how to be a man in college because it was just really hard being away from the city. First of all, you know, urban education and social justice, like the things that I studied at school and that I'm passionate about. Obviously, you can hear it in a lot of my rhymes, so it informs what I do. But also just the experience. Like, yo, I'm coming from New York, going to AU, which is pretty much like a private white institution, not a super diverse place. A lot of kids from like the burbs, you know, seeing what that college experience is like, and seeing what their perspective is. And it's like, whoa, you know, and getting that, and then making my own major, you know, part of it was like, you know, it was, I couldn't decide between education and sociology, and I just didn't want to take any classes that I didn't want to take. So I was like, well, if I make my own shit, then I can just take all the classes I want to take. So I did it, but that's always kind of been who I am, and I kind of just blazed my own path because I never really fit neatly into one. And so, you know, so it's, you know, it was an important time and experience for me. And I didn't realize how New York I was till I left, you know, like when I left, I was like, oh, damn, like, you know, I'm New York as hell. Like that's a big part of my identity. So it was a crazy time. And I kind of was the MC on campus, but not really. There was some other dudes that were rapping a little more than me. And like kids just weren't into what I was doing like that. Like I used to go to the music building, and they had these treated rooms where like with pianos to rehearse. And I used to go at night before the doors locked at 10. I would get there like 9:55, and it would just be like me and like the cleaning crew in that building until like 1 in the morning. And I would just be in there, you know, rapping and doing my thing. So
that's dope. That's dope. All right. So I have a couple more questions, but you have a very strong online presence. Even Facebook, which I thought younger folks were done with Facebook, but you have a powerful Facebook presence, always showing up on my timeline. Probably because of they're all up in my business too. That probably helps. But what are your preferred, you know, platforms? Do you have a preference, social media wise, and how do you stay on top of that?
Well, yeah, it's funny. So when I first started, you know, like 5-6 years ago, really, like Facebook, I was popping on Facebook because there's this thing called Team Backpack. Shout out my guy Armani Cooper, who started Team Backpack, really put me on early. Like I won their competition, and then he would like share. They had this huge Facebook platform where they would post ciphers, all this stuff, and he would share all my craft style, you know, freestyles that would like, you know, a couple of them went really viral on there, like millions of views on Facebook. And I was like, yo, I used to be able to just say like, yo, what up on a Facebook status and get 1,000. Like I really had them. And that's what was weird in the beginning. There was this disconnect between the industry because no one really looked at Facebook as cool. Like, and everyone was looking at Instagram and Twitter. And so I was like, yo, I got a lot of fans. And they would probably like look at me up on Instagram and be like, no, you don't. Like, and I'd be like, yo, I got like, look at Facebook. Look at, these are humans. You know what I mean? So Facebook, you know, Facebook kind of has died out, you know, since then, you know, but I still have a lot of people there. I kind of hate them all. Like, you know, like I mean, it's love hate because they've allowed me to have a career, you know, social media without needing to rely on necessarily some big, you know, corporation or label or whatever to do the marketing. But I mean, I think they're really toxic spaces, and they often like pressure us to conform the art that we make to fit the space, and which can be really unfortunate. I've been taking a real liking to YouTube lately because it's like content based, you know, it's like if you follow me on YouTube, and you can do posts and stuff like that, just like status, like on YouTube, but it's like you're there for the actual videos, like the actual music, the actual art. And it makes me actual money, you know?
Right.
So like I fuck with YouTube. And, you know, I think, you know, Instagram is probably like the most universal one still. But yeah, like I'm hopeful for different spaces to emerge. You know, I have this one crazy idea for like an app that's like the opposite of everything on Instagram. Like we have to find a way, like what we see happening right now with guys doing like limited drops of merch and like this scarcity model of value within certain things. Like I would love to see if there's a way to create a digital space that's about that says like, yo, we don't have to, like, your video can only be 1 minute. Nah, how about your video has to be 3 minutes? Right. So if you can't hold people's attention for 3 minutes, you don't get any followers. So it's like like stuff like something like that, like something like that. So we'll see, man. We'll see how things go. But I be getting like addicted on there, and I hate that shit.
Yeah, me too. It's a necessary evil, though.
Yeah.
But you do it well, I have to say. You know, I wrote an article a long time ago that basically proclaimed that social media would be the demise of most artists' career. But it is a tool like everything else. So we have seen a lot of artists lose respect, credit. You know, it's too much, but I say you definitely do it well. So that's
thank you.
Feather in your cap. Now, any chance we'll get a craft challenge or something? See you doing the little dances or anything?
Oh hell no, bro. Yo, and you know what's crazy is like them shits just don't work for me. Like when I was at the label, like we would try out certain marketing tactics and stuff, and I'll try certain stuff out because you know it's like I'm not above anything. Like, well, I'm above some things. I'll take that back. But like I'm not like, you know, I'm just trying to get people to hear the music, you know. But what I've realized is that like that shit don't even work for me if I wanted to do it, because people come to me and respect me for doing substantive things and making great art, great music. And so I just want to focus on like making that stuff as good as it can, because you can put so much energy. That's the thing. It's like I don't think artists manage their energy enough. And I don't mean like, you know, energy like whatever, like, you know, I mean like literally like where are you putting your time and resources into, because yo, this digital marketing shit's not a game. Like you can spend so much time. I had gotten to a point where trying to figure certain things out this year when I got back independent, was really trying to figure out what my plan was. I got to a point where I was like, yo, I'm spending so much more time. Like the time that I spend making music is like nothing compared to the time I'm spending in meetings trying to figure out what the strategy is for this, that, and the third. And so where I think I'm settling, and I think where a lot of artists are probably need to settle that want to make substantive stuff, is that you got to make a lot of it. You know what I mean? You got to be consistent, because you don't have to do a bunch of bells and whistles. Like the way these algorithms work, you know, is like if you're consistently good and people consistently like your shit and keep coming back, it's going to grow. It's going to grow. It's going to grow. And that can be hard for our artist mentality when we want to leave a legacy and we want to really curate what we're doing. But that's why I think what I'm trying to do is say like, yo, look, when I drop an album, y'all are going to know, and I'm going to make it clear. And this is the next step in the legacy of Marlon Craft musically. But in between, I'm going to give you flavors, and I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff that I love and that's different and that you might not like, but the next man might, next woman, whatever, you know, like, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the challenge I think we have, is like being our own delineators of what is more important, because there's just no way getting around if you don't want to rely on thousands, millions of dollars of like marketing to drop a few things. You have to drop a lot of things.
Right. Gotcha. Now, it wouldn't be all hip hop if we didn't get Marlon Craft's top 5 dead or alive. And this, by the way, this doesn't have to be difficult, and you don't have to feel any pressure, but it's just basically, you know, who you consider your top 5 personally, and or who influenced you the most.
MC, like
it can be who you want. I mean,
MC or artist or rap artist.
Either one, same thing. Come on, we don't have to do that.
Yeah. Kendrick is on there. Jay-Z's on there. I think for me personally, I'll put Biggie on there.
Okay.
Man, Nas. So that's 4. And then, you know, with the 5th spot is where I always have trouble, man. Like, you know, I would say Pac as a human being, as an artist, as a person. But I'm an East Coast kid, man, and I didn't get into the music with the same depth as I got into the man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Him as a human being.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, you don't have to say Pac. I love Pac, but I don't have him in my top 5 personally.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. That's where it gets tricky. I want to come with someone good. I mean, Black Thought is someone that I throw in that 5th spot.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just from an MC perspective,
Yeah.
like I think he's got to be in there, at least in the conversation. You got to say his name.
Absolutely. Is there a commonality between these guys? Is there something? I guess is it just the lyricism? Like, you know,
Nah, I think it's like a blend of the lyricism and the artistry. I mean, to me, I think Kendrick's the GOAT. Like, that's my opinion, because he has, like, you know, everybody else I just named, like, Kendrick has no bad albums. He has like only classic albums.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're on like the 4th or 5th one, bro. Like, we can't even say like, yo, well, you know, it hasn't been long enough. Like, bro.
Yeah.
Like, then he has moments. Like, it's also about moments. Like, BET Cypher, like the Control verse shifted the whole culture, and it wasn't even his song. Like, you know, and but also, even apart from those, like, just the work. Like, these are my favorite bodies of work. And then, you know, Jay is like, you know, you talk about influence, you talk about just skill level, you talk about the music, like the quality of the music. Same with Nas, you know, I mean, I think, damn, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody right now. And it's like, as soon as this is over, I'm going to remember, I'm going to be so tight. But, you know, I take from a lot of people, like, you know, there's so many people that are my favorites that I love. And what's interesting that what I think about when people ask me this question is that, like, it's never easy for me, like, honestly, outside of Kendrick, because I think I observe really critically. Not that I'm bashing anybody, but there's like stuff that I like more, stuff that I don't like. I know the strengths, I know the weaknesses. Like, I'm really a student. So there's no one that I'm like dogmatically like, this person, everything I love about them. And then there's some people that I just love that I know aren't in the top 5 conversation, but that I just really like love as artists. So oh, you know who I'll put actually is a name that I'll throw out. I don't think he makes it, but for me personally, Mick Jenkins is one of my favorite rappers.
Oh yeah, Mick Jenkins is dope. I love Mick Jenkins.
The Waters to me, like, if that came out on a major label, like that, or even at a different time in his career, like, I don't know, but that album is a classic. Like, if Kendrick put out that album verbatim at that same time, like literally the same album, it would be unanimously hailed as a classic. Like, you know, like, that album is incredible, and he's incredible. I mean, he's in the combo for me.
Yeah, definitely. He came to New York, came to Brooklyn, and I missed it, and I was so mad. I was pissed because I don't really see him, you know, really coming to New York. I just didn't think he'd be coming, so I missed it. And we got to get him on our hip hop. Yeah, we haven't even interviewed him yet. You know,
he's dope. I've seen him twice. He does this thing where, like, he comes out. I remember it fucked me up because I was always like, I was like observing before I was doing shows, like, how do guys do their shows? And one of the moments I always thought was mad cool was like when like the moment that someone comes out, you know, it's like, yo, he does this thing where, like, and I respect it. It's not my shit, but I respect it. Yo, he just walks out before, like the DJ's warming up the crowd, just play music, whatever. He just walks out, mad solemn, drinking a bottle of water, puts the water down, and like kind of looks around and just chills and like hits his mic. And then he purposefully like does the anti-entrance. And it just fucked me up because he was like my favorite rapper at the time, and he came out. I was dumb hyped, and I was like, is he good? Like, are you good? Are you gonna rap? Like, what's good? Like, but I respect it. Like, he just does his own thing, man, and he's a.
We need more Mick Jenkins.
Yeah.
That's what's up. You have I have to ask. This is funny, but I'm gonna say it. I have one beef with you, and on the Tunnels End, there's a magical Negro on the Tunnels End, and he's like, the train, it goes in a circle, but if you're not careful.
Listen. Nah, here's the truth. I wrote all those, and the metaphor of the train, man. Listen to the writing, because that dude, like, that I felt like was some of my best. Like, the metaphor of the train, I think, made a lot of sense. And when I went back and listened to it later, all the stuff that I was saying, thinking about what's happened in our society now, I was like, oh damn, bro, that I felt proud of that. That dude's name is Arthur French. He's actually a really accomplished actor. And, you know, I come from a theater family. You know, like, my grandparents were directors, And
Okay.
so I had this like vision for it at the time. Again, this is like me, no budget, in my room. And I was like, yo, I've wrote this like kind of script. And the idea is that I run into this guy like on the train. And I was like, do you know anybody that, and my grandma literally just called him, and he pulled up to my bedroom. He's like this 90-year-old dude, came through to my bedroom, and we did the whole thing together, and I recorded it or whatever. Now that you say it, like, I guess I hear it. And like,
I'm just messing with you.
But the thing is, I guess why it didn't feel like that way to me, because he's like a really accomplished cat. Like, he's a really an elite like theater actor, and he was doing this thing. And also that's the other thing too. Like, I wasn't gonna tell him where to go with it necessarily, like in terms of delivery, because like, you know, he's like a really accomplished dude, and he was sounding good. What am I gonna say to him? Like, yo, can you make it sound a little less magical, Negro? You like, come on, bro. Well, I'm gonna like, yo, like, so like, you know, but yeah, man, he was a really cool dude, man, and a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, Marlon Craft, man, thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to tell people?
That's it, man. I mean, how we intended is out, man. I hope you stream it. We're gonna keep pointing back to it, man, because I'm proud of it as a body of work, but also we're gonna keep it moving forward, man. I got a new EP coming soon, you know, that I'm gonna announce soon. I got, you know, another album that I'm finishing up. I got, you know, music all year, man. So we're gonna keep it coming, and I just hope people stay tapped in and spread the word.
Brother, I salute you. Thank you so much, man, for your time and your energy. You know, I really do appreciate it, and I hope this is not the last time we speak. Definitely,
man. Stay in touch. I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for having me, for real.
All right, I'll be in touch. Peace.
All right, man. Later.